I know, it's crazy. It's
What's
crazy.
going on? Well, I'll tell
Yeah,
you what's
what's
going
going on?
on. Life,
Mm-hmm.
life. And if nothing else, we want to bring you the content that you've come to expect from the Catch Up Podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
we are discussing the conversation, the topic, as everyone talking if they live in half of the United States. As you can see, the title of the live stream is The Day After Tomorrow. Understanding the winter storm and its consequences. A few years back, literally 2 years ago, actually, we talked about the terrible winter storm that basically destroyed Texas.
Mm.
And we talked about power grid issues. We talked about all that kind of stuff. Now, I think that's worth another discussion because
Mm-hmm.
we are continuing to move toward a more and more all electric future.
Mm-hmm.
And at least for the time being. And it is shown that our grid really struggles. Now, to be fair, Texas's grid has struggled for a long time.
Yeah.
But the cracks are really starting to show, especially with more and more people living down there. And Dennison's case being very interesting as well, when pretty much everything is running off of the grid or battery
Mm-hmm.
or what have you. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons to talk about it, but also, you notice. I was just thinking about this the other day, looking at the path of this storm. When we were kids, that line would have been where I'm at. It would have been Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
It would have gone. Maybe I can pull it up. I'll see if I can here real quick before we start recording and all that kind of stuff.
Give us a visual aid to help us out.
Yeah, because this is oh wow.
Mm.
Oh, this is up to date. Okay, yeah. Because this is still going on right now, right? And Groundhog
Yeah,
Day,
yeah. No, it's still going through everything.
yeah, yeah. And Groundhog Day is when?
I don't know.
How
One of
you
those
gonna
days.
know how many more weeks of winter we got, man? If you don't know when Groundhog Day is,
It's such a silly,
nah,
silly,
man.
silly, silly thing
It's as real
calling it
as could be.
Groundhog Day, and somehow the groundhog, if he sees his own shadow, is a thing. You know, but
No,
hey,
it's real. Look, science
it's real.
dictated Groundy the groundhog or whatever his name is. Punxsutawney Phil. That guy, he
Mm,
knows his weather, dude. Man, I don't understand why this is so hard to find. Um, I want to have it later, but let's see. That's funny. This map is considering this minor impacts. I can definitely say that's
minor, interesting.
yeah. Let me see if I can share this on the live stream before we start recording here, real quick.
Okay.
Share screen, and we'll go to this WPC. There we go. Perfect. This is what we're looking at. So
Mm,
this is minor to moderate impacts currently.
mm-hmm.
Um, so minor are a few inconveniences like driving conditions. Moderate is hazardous driving conditions or closures and disruptions. So that's why I feel like this is kind of inaccurate here because it really, like, I know Texas, all of this had moderate impact right here.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, but anyway, as you can see, it stretched up over here. Now my point is, a lot of times, it's not to say this doesn't happen, but you would see this whole line right here that I'm outlining with my mouse
Mm-hmm.
up here. It'd be where I'm at in Kansas and
Yep.
stretch up to the Great Lakes region. This is something that is consistent with global warming models where the heartland is more dry than ever, more arid. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, a lot of the good farming ground has moved south and moved north.
Yep.
away from this area. And so it's consistent with what we're seeing here um, on this. And so that's really what I want to talk about. And I think I will go ahead and just start recording here. We'll just kind of low key go right into it. You know what I'm saying?
Let's do
Uh,
it. Let's do it.
Darian, what's up on the notification gang, man?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that before I hit this. Yeah, have you seen that TikTok where it's like the girl joining a Zoom meeting like she's an influencer? She's like, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's so nice. You think I'm pretty. Thank you." She's like, "Oh, where did I get this dress? Oh, I got online. I got online. Thank you." Like, she's like, I just want to wait for a few more people to jump on before I start. Like, it's so that's us, bro. All right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
man.
um, let's see here. Yeah, I'll just kind of roll right into it. Hit
Hey,
record.
man, do it. Do it up.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is what I'm looking at for this map. Obviously, we're live on the live stream. If you're listening on the audio, but you know, looking at this trajectory from this winter storm, like I was saying, this is something you would typically see more north, more in the Midwest, hitting the Great Lakes area. It basically is a weather pattern we would have seen in the 90s or early 2000s, just shifted south, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which again, as I said, is consistent with global warming models. There's more moisture to the south, there's more moisture to the north. The heartland, like Kansas, Colorado, dry, like record drought, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's one thing to point out that there's an impact on the infrastructure for Texas that we've seen, but it's another thing really to discuss how this is going to keep happening. We
Yep.
saw it happen in 2021, the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
People died. We saw it happen last year. It wasn't quite as bad, but it was really bad, you know. And that one got us. That one got Kansas really bad. I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, February of last year was really rough for winter weather. And then you know now here we are again, and same story. It's something that I've seen my whole life ever since I grew up in Texas of crashes, power outages, people not knowing how to drive in slick conditions, right? They
Mm-hmm.
have they have summer all performance tires on their cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But the problem is now you're having to deal with it more consistently. So for you, um, because you live in Austin now,
Yeah.
a lot of what was highlighted was from the Dallas Metroplex area, but
Mm-hmm.
it was bad down in Austin too. What was it like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. No. It was pretty bad in Austin, I would say. I would say since Austin is, more down south, we had warmer temperatures. And with
Yeah,
that comes more probability of getting freezing rain, which is in some ways I feel like is worse than what you would get for like snow or or like flurries or something similar to that, is because with freezing rain it sticks more. It feels like it sticks more to like the plants,
yeah,
or and the ground, and you get more cases of like black ice being out on the road, where as opposed to say like snow or some of the other things like that. And so I would say in Austin there was a ton of ice, truly. So in particular, so I would say like when it first started, right? um Thank you, Christina.
we
um
definitely didn't quote that before we went live.
Yeah, no, we didn't. We didn't get a chance to say that. um Christina said, sneaky ruthless black ice,
If you're a
which is
Key and
a
Peele
Key and
fan,
Peele skit.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know that one. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
um Yeah, so there was a lot of black ice that we had to deal that I had to deal with. I know what was it? I guess yesterday, I went into work and um, uh, it was I had to go really slow because there were certain parts of the road that were fine; they were just wet, and then there was other parts, mainly the bridges, that just like had a lot of ice. And it's really interesting because when you have a EV, right, you have regenerative braking, so because it goes off of that whole mantra of like one pedal driving. So there's a lot of opportunities for you not to actually use your brakes. Um, and so what the problem with that is you normally don't want to brake when you're going over ice,
Right.
because it can cause you to fishtail. Um,
Which you can turn that off, right?
you can,
Yeah.
and so I lowered my regenerative braking. Technically, you can't turn it off, at least in the Tesla, you can't turn it off, but I
Okay.
could lower it. So I made it really, really low and then just, change my throttle position, um, and that helped a ton, but that was something that it was a little scary. And then today, uh, obviously, I didn't go out. It was a little bit crazier. I actually ended up getting the day off, but with that came power outages. So I had no power from 6 this morning all the way until I think around 5 this evening.
Yeah.
And I'll say 5 this evening when by the time it actually got stable,
Yeah.
because I think it flickered on sometime in the afternoon, um, for maybe 10 minutes at the late at the longest, and then it went off. And then it flickered on a couple other times, but not for a long time. Not a gosh darn, not for a long period of time. So it
Right.
was pretty bad. But I think one of the scariest things or interesting things to hear is the constant breaking of branches, like literal tree branches just falling off. Where my apartment is, I'm close to like a whole bunch of really old, beautiful trees. And yeah, just hearing their branches just like snap off and then essentially walking around and seeing that, um, it was really, really interesting to see it. It's something that I'm not really used to, and I
Sure.
think that's kind of what the scary part is about um, freezing rain, is because it sticks to things and it literally freezes onto stuff, and then it becomes that weight,
Yep.
gravitates. And so, if I'm not mistaken, that was actually one of the main reasons why I lost power was because a tree branches had essentially broken off because of the weight of the ice and then hit the power line.
Yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely bet you're right. And that is really what we want to talk about. And really, real quick, let's see Darian's comment here. He says, folks were spinning out like crazy over here, which is kind of be expected. It's more so the black ice. Yeah. That
Mm.
black ice will steal your balance, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it'll just rob your car of balance. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I wanted to point this out too. So I found the map that I'm looking for.
Oh
The
yeah.
map, I'm the map, I'm the map, and it's it shows the weather impact, ice storm warning all the way from Texas through Oklahoma, parts of Arkansas, Alabama, even up to Tennessee.
Hmm.
And speaking of black ice, our friend of the show, Blake Ellis, um, he slipped and fell, sprained his ankle, uh,
Hmm.
because of black ice in downtown Nashville. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and so that just shows how widespread this impact is, which is really crazy. But yeah, it's this is the thing that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the frequency of this. We're going to talk about the impact on our infrastructure from all of this,
Yeah.
uh, economically, of course, and what needs to be done in preparation for this. Because weather trends will show you that extreme weather events are becoming more and more common, uh,
Hmm.
due
Hmm.
to climate change. So that's what we want to talk about. And I say that we go ahead and get into it.
Let's do it.
Heck yeah, man. It's good stuff. Um, I am gonna look up something so I have it. Um, let's see.
That way you have it there ready to go.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
There you go. Okay. Cool. Let's go ahead and slap right into it. Three,
let's
two,
do it.
one. What's going on, everybody? I'm John,
And I'm Dennison.
and this is the catch up. It's good balance to it. Good balance to
Yeah.
it. Yeah. All right.
Let's
Three,
go.
two, one. Before we jump back into our topic, I want to remind you guys of the three best ways to support us. Number one, some of you are already doing it. Jump on the live stream with us, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube. We get to, as we already have a discussion in real time, two ways, not just between Dennis and I, but between all of you. And it really expands the conversation. It makes it a really cool community to have that we get to share in this conversation in real time. And we want your input. We want to know what you're thinking about. We want to know what has you talking. So follow us, type our podcast in. It's linked if you're listening on the audio, but type our podcast styling on Facebook and YouTube and like or subscribe. Number two, leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know what you think. The number system keeps getting more and more interesting over here on the live stream. Um, number number two is leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you think of each episode, and that helps us continue to grow. It also helps put our podcast out in front of more listeners. And number three, there it is. You see it on the calculator. Um, if you want to support us monetarily and you'd like to rep some good, clean catch up podcast merch, hit the link wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Go to our shop and get you something to keep you nice and warm in all this winter storm. We got long sleeves, we got hoodies, we got beanies, we got hats, we got a whole lot more. So check it out. All right, man. With that said, let's jump back into this. So, really, let's start with the frequency of these storms. This goes hand in hand with what we've talked about and what we know about the Gulf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hurricanes aren't necessarily happening more frequently, but the
Yep.
strength of them is higher. It's an average, the median or the average, I should say, like I said, is higher and of intensity. And the reason for that is simply because with the variability in Arctic temps, that because of the jet stream and how our planet works,
Mm-hmm.
warmer temperatures up there impact everything. The
Yep.
warm water, the cool atmosphere, all of that colliding together is what spins up storms. It's the
Mm.
water cycle.
Yeah.
um, and so we know this with in relation to the Gulf, but the fact is it impacts everything. It's why you see flooding in the upper Midwest a lot. It's why you see more tornadoes in places like Dallas um, and surrounding areas. It's why, as I mentioned earlier, it's drier in the Midwest,
Yep.
the heartland, but it's wetter in surrounding areas. Um, more wet. I hate wetter, dude. That's such a stupid word. Anyway, so it's more, more wet in those surrounding areas, and
Mm-hmm.
hence the flooding. This is playing out all over the world, not just here. We talked about several months back with England having those severe wildfires and record high temperatures, all because of global warming, right?
Yep.
And so it stands to reason this is impacting not just normal weather, but winter weather as well, right? Because What is winter weather than a storm at a colder temperature? So let's talk about that, man. I mean, with the expectation that this continues more frequently or perhaps gets more severe in places like the South that are not necessarily prepared for it, right?
Mhm.
What do you feel like um, is the concern there and potentially the impact as well?
Yeah. Uh, I think one of the biggest concerns is that, like you said, it's the South isn't prepared, especially for winter stuff, right? I feel like the South is able to prepare relatively well for, other types of weather events. It's just the I say, and to be more specific, I guess Texas, right? Um, has a hard time being prepared for it because, in the past, right? It didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense because I remember when I was younger, sure we would have snow days, right? But it would usually be one day. Usually one day of a year, we'd have one like, scary snow day. And then after that, it's over, right? It's just cold
Exactly.
temps.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, and now we're getting to a point where we'll have like snow weeks, right? I vividly remember when we started to like transition from like a snow day to like almost a week full of like snow or like heavy winter weather.
Hmm.
And even if it's just a week, that's still not the cost commitment, right? Because you're telling these cities now to, hey, you need to buy snow plows, or you need to buy more um, chemicals or types of things to help treat the roads so that way they're better prepared for the winter.
Yeah.
And that's a big cost, right? That's a big chunk out of the city's budget that they would have for that year. And you're telling them to do that, and that's a hard thing to sell when you don't know. Each year can be different, right? I would say even at the very beginning of this winter has been relatively mild, right? I think in a few days it's going to go back up to 70 in Austin. Like, so it's like, why would, if you're having such huge temperature swings, why is it's hard to prepare for stuff like that. And so I think that's the reason why we see such um of a big issue, I guess, that we have here, and even like as opposed to, I should say, yeah, the reason why we have such big issues with this type of weather here as opposed to other places, right? At the place that I work, some of my coworkers were like, we're from Reno, right? We're used to getting like 10 inches of snow or something,
Yeah.
and we're still going to work or whatever like that. But
Right. Right.
here they're like, oh, everything gets shut down. It's just because we're not prepared for it. And so really what it is that we need to start having those discussions with our politicians and finding ways for us to be able to purchase these weather this equipment that is necessary for colder weather, because it's something, like you said, that is going to become more and more frequent, and the extreme becomes less and less uncommon.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So
Well, straight from the scientist horse's mouth. I'm going to read this verbatim. The relationship between climate change and winter storms is complex and still the subject of ongoing scientific research. However, many studies show that warming planet can lead to more frequent and intense winter storms. This is like what we talked about earlier.
mhm,
It goes on to discuss the jet stream and how warming Arctic temps can disrupt that. Um, Here's a little bit more information on what I was saying.
mm,
Warmer temps can also cause more moisture to be present in the atmosphere, which can lead to heavier snowfalls in the case of winter
mm,
storms.
yep,
Um, Additionally, as temperatures rise, more rain falls and step snow, and this can then freeze on roads and other surfaces like what you've experienced down in Texas.
mhm,
It's important to note that climate change can cause more variability in weather patterns, leading to a greater likelihood of both unusually mild and unusually severe winter storms. While it is difficult to attribute any single winter storm to climate change, obviously, the evidence suggests that warming planet may lead to more frequent and intense winter storms in the future. So there is more clear and scientific reason as to why.
Mhm.
Um, and the thing for me, really, well, and like you said, you've lived in Texas long enough, and I have enough experience. You're right. It was maybe one snow day a year, rarely an ice day.
Mhm.
And now it's multiples or it's a whole week's worth. And that is more akin to what you would experience up here. There were several, I think one up here being in Kansas. I think I remember one in like 2007 that had power out in certain areas for weeks, right?
Mhm.
Um, and you would expect that more with rural environments, not necessarily with more big city environments. And that is really what I wanted to go into next on this discussion is you mentioned the money side of things and the impact that this has on the local economy of these places that are being hit by these storms. And that's what's interesting to me. Usually, economic factors strongly impact things like this. So,
Mhm.
for example, we haven't wanted to tackle climate change because it's not profitable to do so. Not entirely, for certain industries, it is.
Yeah.
But as we've mentioned before, the auto industry isn't going electric because they care about the environment. They're going electric because it makes them money.
Mhm.
Like Mr. Krabs, man. So, you know, so they're doing that. You would think that a lot of these cities, due to the economic impact, not only of people not going out and buying and spending their money, but not spending gas, not doing anything because they're staying home because everything's closed from these winter storms.
Mhm.
You would think it would benefit them to invest more in this infrastructure. I
Yeah.
I saw an overhead shot of I think it was George Bush, the turnpike.
Mhm.
I think it was the interchange with was it 635? Anyway, um, and I saw Cassie jump in on the chat. She says, "Leave it to John to input a SpongeBob reference. I will find a way." But my co-host is the reason that I got so proficient with these quotes. Uh,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, you see this with just completely sheet of ice over this highway, right? And it's a major
Mhm.
highway. And it's always been that kind of stuff, I 75, I 35. It's always been that way. I understand that TxDOT has way more ground to cover than in Wichita and its surrounding areas to put sand and salt and all that kind of brine to melt the ice, right? I get
Yeah.
that. But there have been absolutely zero improvements made in that regard since I was a little kid. And it's debilitating. The only people that benefit from it economically are repair shops, auto repair shops.
Mhm.
And, and actually, I mean, of course, I want your opinion on all this, but deviating just a second, is there maybe a dark side that does benefit economically from the impacts of these winter storms? Construction crews, repair crews, maintenance crews. Um, a lot of them are being subsidized by the city, so I would say probably no. Um, but you also have, like I said, those mechanic shops or just private enterprise uh maintenance crews, those type of things. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think about all that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think that there are some industries that benefit a little bit more when these ice storms kind of pop through. I mean, I think you did make a great point though that I think sometimes a lot of these cities I don't want to a lot of these cities may view this type of weather kind of in a narrow-minded kind of view of like, well, it's just that, 1 week out of the year or something similar to that, and not understanding the amount of money that it costs the city, right? Like you said, they usually will subsidize these construction companies and these other crews to fix the issues that arise from this ice, from the bad winter weather.
Yeah.
So they're actually having to pay out a ton more. And
Right.
maybe it's just, you know, under helping them understand the difference between how much you're actually going to spend, right? Or maybe if it's even more government programs, federal government, not just local government, but federal government programs to help these southern states start to understand that there's more of a new norm starting, right? And maybe giving them subsidies that are going to help them slowly kind of get themselves up to where they need to be. And then at that point, you know, those can go away. Um, but that would help incentivize things, right?
Right.
Um,
And
we could
well, and
even
that, oh, go. Sorry. Go ahead.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, and that really is the thing that I feel like inspires a lack of change here because you hit the nail on the head. I was going to bring it up. At the end of the day, this is covered by FEMA, right? In a lot
Mhm.
of cases, which is federal money, which is our money, both of us, we're helping pay for that.
Yep.
But a lot of these municipalities, cities, counties are reimbursed by FEMA. And so it really, to me, kind of falls on the federal government to inspire that change to say, hey, these are the things that we need to do to improve transportation during these times
Yep.
and power grid reliability during these times to make sure people can still not even just get to work, but get to wherever they need to go, the necessities, right? Because
Mhm.
imagine being like an ambulance driver during that time.
Yeah.
You have a house call for a heart attack or something, and you're having to just tiptoe all the way there because the roads are terrible.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and then you also have to be careful about the people who don't understand that the roads are terrible, and so they'll spin out around you, and now you've got another thing that you have to deal with. So it's yeah, it's maybe you know if the way that the FEMA program works is that you know they like you said they inspire, but they also kind of in some ways hold hostage some of that money by
Yeah.
saying like, hey, we'll help you, but you're not going to get as much help if you continue to not focus on making these changes to better improve your citizens' situation, right?
Yeah. I like that idea. And um man, yeah. I think I think that's a great idea is kind of threaten taking it away. Um Man, could you imagine if a winter storm hit Houston, bro? 5 hours, everyone's dead. Like they're all deceased.
That'd
in,
be
Hu-
messed up. That'd be
in
crazy,
Houston,
man.
bro? No, man, they can't drive anyway. They don't know how to drive in
That's
Houston.
true.
You put ice
That's
down there?
true. But I mean, technically, the last winter storm that happened, you know, the big one, um, it did hit Houston.
Yeah,
So,
population density dropped by 90%. I read the article. um, Christina says, from my experience as a former city employee, when a storm hit, FEMA only reimburses you when you hit a certain threshold. That is also true. Yes. And thank you
mm,
for bringing that
okay.
up. But I and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember from being in the news that there are things they can do to make sure they hit that threshold. If that
Mm,
makes sense, I seem to recall steps being taken to make sure that there was enough expense being uh, put out
mhm,
so that you make sure you hit that FEMA threshold so you get all of it reimbursed rather than a lower bill. Especially if you're like 80% of the way there. You're like, well, what else do we need to do that we could in some way tie to this storm, right? Make sure we hit
yeah.
that threshold. Um, like I said, I seem to remember that being the case. But yeah, what do you think? Are I would have to think that these storms, granted, let's say even to the point that you were making, it happens once a year.
Mhm.
It still seems to me that it would be enough of a economic impact that would warrant some sort of solution, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'd be some sort of, well, I guess it just depends, right? It's because you're not gonna buy like 5,000 snow plows, right? Um, because it's gonna happen once a year, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a enormous expense. That's millions and millions of dollars
Right.
of equipment that is one use, right? It's not something that you can convert into something, because I do know that that has been something that Dallas, as well as uh, a lot of other cities in Texas have kind of done, is they've done retrofitting, right? They've used um, some of the other equipment trucks, and they've essentially converted those into. They've bought the equipment to be able to easily convert them into snow plows, and then convert them back. Now, of course, it doesn't do the same amount of stuff,
Yeah.
um, but you're at least you have it there.
Sure.
And so um I think you kind of have to do a little bit of both, right? You have to figure out if you want to go this far or that far, right? We're even if we get outside of the realm of snowplows, because that is a lot, but maybe doing the, like you were talking about, the brine, right? Figuring out how
Yep.
to properly do that. But then you also have to make sure that you hire in people who actually know how to do that as well, right? So that's the other thing. So that now you've created another salary that you have to pay for that one day,
Yeah.
or even that 1 week a year. Um, I mean, of course, you can do contractors, but again, it's still something. But I do think
Well,
there are ways that a lot of a lot of local cities can do to make it a little bit easier to save themselves the extra amount of money.
well, yeah, those contractors in situations like that hike their rates super high.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And smaller cities, depending on how small you go, a lot of that's all volunteer anyway, right? Now, I know you're not talking about that small, but
Yeah.
each different size of city, town, what have you, they have to figure out their own way to handle this. And Christina says, yeah, they probably think about the cost of upkeep, training, storage, etc., just for it to rarely be used. And maybe that's the story. Maybe that is the discussion here. I seem to recall instances in North Texas where they were just unprepared when it came to the necessary amount of salt and brine and things like that. And it was totally lack of preparation
Yep.
and infrastructure that led to that. Because that stuff can be set on for a long time. Not brine so much, because it has to be mixed, but like salt and sand and all that can be. But yeah, maybe that is really the point of the economic impact, to the discussion that we're having, is that it doesn't make economic sense for them to prepare for winter storms like this.
Yep.
So at what point would it? Because as we led off with the discussion, I don't see this slowing down anytime soon. We're just going to have more of these kind of storms in the south and in the northeast too. They've gotten hit pretty hard even this year with
Yeah.
winter storms.
Yeah. They have been. Honestly, for me, I kind of feel like it's that balancing act, right? I feel like if say city, or even just local, or even just a state, were to slowly invest right into it, instead of it just being like a one deal, let's just buy them all. Slowly invest, right? Putting slow amount, like slowly making the funding of preparation for these, not just winter events, right? But even like other disasters, to slowly increase that fund, knowing that that preparation fund, not just the disaster fund, but the preparation fund, to slowly ramp that up, so that way it makes it easier for these cities, everyone who's pulling from that money, or from that stint, to be able to pull from it easily and without causing any more issues.
Yeah.
I think that might be something, like a good solution that could be used, or even create spin up. I don't like always privatizing certain things, but I will say that sometimes the private industry can make things, the preparation of this kind of stuff, a lot faster. They can do things a lot faster and be a little bit more agile than say the government can be.
Sure.
Um, and so maybe privatizing some of this stuff may be something that could help, um, you know, reinforce and stuff like when it comes particular to the electrical grid, right? I think that is something that can be reinforced and upgraded, and that has a cost. Yes, it has a a very big cost, but I feel like it also has a very good um, specific, or I should say, it has a really good. Man, I am losing the words right now, but
No, you're good.
like it just has a really good like up upside to it, to where
Sure.
you're not really losing anything for spending that amount of money.
Right, right, definitely. Yeah, return on investment. Christina's got you
There
there.
we go. Thank you. That's
Um,
what I was trying to go for.
yeah, and she says, semi-spicy question. Would it make sense to throw that money to mitigating the effects of climate change instead? And that I don't think is semi-spicy at all. I think that
Yeah.
that is exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was thinking kind of the same thing.
And yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, that's the answer along with what you were saying entirely. I'm saying that entirely because we are relying on the electric grid more and more for everything. Everything. I mean, it's gonna power the majority of our cars someday, right? A lot of
Mhm.
us are relying on everything for it. And with that is going to take a massive overhaul in and of itself. That's why we're not already just shifting entirely over to electric cars. It's because they have to take the time to get the electric grid ready to support all of that. Think of California, right?
Yeah.
Wildfires going on, they have rolling blackouts or brownouts, all in an effort to conserve energy. But they're among the ones that are going to they're going to be among the first to phase out the sales of gasoline cars, right? And
Mhm.
so, as we just talked about last week, and so this is not something that we can even handle right now. And we're also asking, or we're bringing all these people into Texas, into Austin, into Dallas, and then we're like, yeah, we'll just kind of let our normal grid continue to do what it does, and we're going to add more draw on it as the years go by, and
Mhm.
these storms have the potential to get more and more frequent. That to me is what we need to do is invest heavily in our infrastructure. It is something that is happening. A little sidebar, I'm very excited, but the money is officially there to connect Dallas to Wichita via rail. And I would, dude, I come down every other week, man. If I could ride a train down there.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
And I think that line connects to Austin too. I'll have to look later. But
I think you're right. I think it is supposed to connect to Austin, so that'd be amazing.
it'd be amazing. Yeah, it really would. So I'm excited about that. And I think that oddly enough, and that's another discussion for a different episode, but I think that rail is the answer to a lot of our transportation issues,
Mhm.
but over and underground. But still, um, yeah, that's really what I'm getting at is we need to invest money in climate change prevention or mitigation
Mhm.
and make sure that our grid is ready to go because that's where I was going with this. The infrastructure bill is providing a lot for that kind of stuff, but it's not providing enough. I mean, it's a huge bill, but
Yeah.
once you split it out over the entire nation, plus accounting for inflation, it's not going to be just a night and day change.
Yep.
Our highways need
We
repaired and maintenance, and that's a large part of that bill. But we also need huge electric grid improvements, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We need multiple really big infrastructure bills technically to kind of fix a lot of the issues that we have with our current infrastructure, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's the electrical grid, it's bridges, because we have tons of old, very old, not well kept bridges that we need to fix. Because I know that was something that has been kind of a topic, of bridges that are just collapsing because they needed to be upkept far better than they were. But yeah, and then there's of course the much more aging electrical grid that we continuously put more and more of a load onto, not just from I mean, of course, we have, electric vehicles, and then, now there's been newer studies coming out. I just want to throw this in here. Newer studies coming out saying that gas stoves aren't exactly the best thing for you to have in your house.
For
So,
safety wise?
well, not just safety, but also like for air quality. Like it's
Oh,
actually, it's very much more toxic fumes and stuff like that. And I think more cancer causing toxic fumes,
yeah. That
that
makes
are
sense.
yeah, it does make sense, but it is something that, there's becoming more and more of a grow to change that, moving those over to electric. So again, another thing that we are starting to try and phase out as we become more green and also just kind of better for health wise. And so those are more things that are going to be more um, problematic on the grid. And so, yes, I think, putting in multiple bills of things to strengthen our grid, um, also create newer sources for our grid, right? Different types of energies, different types of greener energies, I should really say. Um, and then, of course, repairing and um, figuring out other ways like creating subsidies for, say, like carbon capture programs, right? That kind of goes back to what we were talking about. What was it? I think last week or a few episodes ago, we were talking about creating like types of biofuels, or not biofuels, but greener fuels, essentially carbon neutral fuels. And I know carbon capturing, or carbon dioxide capturing, is actually another, um, is one thought process of being able to essentially turn that carbon dioxide that's been captured from the atmosphere and turning that into fuel, has been another way to try and like slowly claw back the damage that we've already created. So I think, all of these things, right? As I saw, and I think I've talked about many times on a bunch of our podcasts, it's we kind of got to do everything
Yep.
because of the amount of damage that we've already done to our climate. We kind of have to do all the things, all the checking all the boxes, not just one thing to push into it.
Yeah. Well, and it the solution isn't just through one thing. It's not
Mm,
through natural gas or wind power or electricity. You know, it's not just through one of those things. It's through a combination of those things, plus alternative fuels and the other things that you mentioned. You know, because yeah, I mean, a lot of people still have gas fireplaces too. You
mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and a fireplace just doesn't hit as hard if it's electric. You know what I mean?
That's true. It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't. But
It really doesn't. It's super fair. It
gotta
feels
do what's
very
best.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of steps that need to be taken. And I think that, this doesn't just go for these winter storms. This goes for the other things I mentioned off the top. It goes for severe hurricanes, Gulf storms, uh,
Mm-hmm.
severe storms in the Midwest from tornadoes, things like that. There's a lot to account for and build upon. And of course, you want your roads, highways, and byways to be strong. But in the case of the Gulf, strong levees, right? Strong bridges. Uh,
Mhm.
but again, all of it kind of circles back to the power grid. So I think that is really the conclusion that we come to here. And I think we had a good discussion on it, man. Did you have anything
Yeah.
else that you wanted to add?
I think one other thing that I wanted to kind of briefly touch on was just um the I think the push for these changes, right? These betterments aren't just because I feel like I've seen this a bunch. They're not just to, prepare for, like you already said, for winter storms or whatever like that. They're for the betterment of the planet. And it's not just for the United States, it's for everywhere, right? These are greener initiatives to help get us back on track where we should be when it comes to our climate, when it comes to um when it comes to like just overall health. I think a lot of these initiatives will help create that better change for future generations, right? Because we're already seeing, of course, the effects of it, but the farther that we go into the future, the worse that things get if we don't make any big changes. And
Yep.
main reason why I wanted to stress this is because it feels like consistently it does become more of like a politicized thing, um, when it shouldn't be. It should be something that we should all kind of come together and be like, oh wait, you know what? Hurricane whatever was a devastation for everybody, and it wasn't just because of global warming. It was because of or it's or I should really say it's not just because we didn't prepare or we prepared improperly because the Republicans or the Democrats didn't do whatever. It's because of the inactions that we did from the past are now starting to actually cause the issues that we have now, and it's like we don't want to continue that process.
Yeah. Um, and it's not actually about for them, for the lawmakers, the legislators in Washington. It's not really about um, the other side blocking what they want to do. It's the narrative. Or blocking what is right. I mean to say, but it's the narrative. It's the fact that Republicans can say, well, Democrats want to take away your way of life. And then Democrats can say, well, Republicans are trying to destroy our planet. And that's all it is. That's the narrative.
Hmm.
That fear, I've talked about it many times on here, but that fear of the other side is what gets you out to vote. And they're not going to do anything about it as long as you keep voting on that sort of behalf.
Yeah.
But that's not to say there aren't some people out there that really want to make change, and that's obvious. You can see those people, but yeah, no, I think that's a good point because in theory, on the path that we're heading on right now, you're right. These weather conditions and the strain on our grid, if left unchanged, will continue to get worse.
Hmm.
So, it's a good point. Good point, man. Real quick, oh yeah, Christina says don't be accomplishing nothing, just sound bites and tweets. That's it. I
Hmm.
actually saw an interview with I think it was a senator talking about how the younger generation of senators and representatives, which is to say people in their 40s, um, all they want to do is become celebrity, which I don't disagree with, but I also don't think it's necessarily new. I think it's been going on for quite a while, actually.
Yeah.
But it's only gotten worse with social media becoming what it is. They just, yeah, like, well, I'm not going to name any names necessarily, but there are quite a few good examples out there of people who just use their platform for the retweets, for the screen time on Fox News or on MSNBC. There's quite a few people that do that. Uh,
Mhm.
and those are unfortunately they get their constituents out to the polls by acting this way, and so those sheep of people don't see that nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
See a
No,
bunch of
you're right.
talk, they like the talk, but they don't follow closely enough to know if the walk is being walked.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, man, real quick, Tom Brady, bro, officially
Tom Brady.
retiring today.
See
Gone.
how long that lasts.
You don't know? You think he's going to come back?
I mean, he may, man. It's just
I think he's done. I don't think
y
he does that twice, man. Not Tom Brady. He's not
I
Brett
don't
Favre.
know, man. I mean, it's kind of unheard of for someone to go into retirement and then come back again, so or
Not
come back and
really.
do.
Not really. I mean, Michael Jordan retired twice.
I mean, that's true, that's true, but that's Michael Jordan, man, and,
I mean, Tom Brady not Tom Brady? I mean,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. This man had a whole divorce over a freaking over uh coming out of retirement.
we may never know. I mean, he they could have had that happen because he came out of retirement, or he could have came out of retirement because that was happening. You know, I don't know.
I mean, hey, you're right. You're right.
Cassie says the goat who cried wolf. That's very poetic. um, but also, I don't know. I don't see him doing that twice. Um, Christina said he ended up with the real love of his life, football, right? I'm assuming, yeah. I did see this
Mhm.
thing where he's got like this really young girlfriend now. Like
Does he?
it's yeah, it's like Giselle, like his ex-wife, right? But
Mhm.
like a younger, newer model.
Interesting. Interesting. I know
um,
that Giselle did start modeling again, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
she's like,
yeah.
well, now that I don't have a husband anymore, might as well go ahead and start modeling.
Right.
Jump back into it. Hey, she's doing what she loves.
Alleged girlfriend, sorry. Alleged
Mm,
girlfriend.
legend.
She reacted to his this is such tabloid stuff, dude. But regardless, get that bag. That's right, Queen, get that bag. Christina said that in the comments. She really does, dude. I don't know if there's a way to, probably not. Well, if you know what Giselle Bundchen looks like, then this will probably help. But I'm gonna throw it up on the live stream here.
Mm,
Uh, because I don't have a compare contrast kind of a thing. This is the
mhm.
new girlfriend.
Ah,
Eh,
okay. Or the
Yep.
new alleged girlfriend.
Alleged. Yeah.
Alleged.
Alleged
Allegedly.
alleged girlfriend. Which,
Okay.
comparatively,
There are some similarities I do see.
there are some similarities. So take that. I mean, it's actually kind of wild, man. I'm not gonna lie. So let's see. Stop screen. I'm gonna throw this up over here now. Um, boom. That's
Mm,
Giselle.
yeah,
A lot of similarities.
very much so.
I know. I know. She
Hey,
reacted too.
you stick to what you know.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, apparently the new and the old both reacted to his retirement, as you would expect. So, um, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's interesting. You know what? Maybe the real coming out of retirement is their relationship. I think
Yeah,
he's,
maybe so.
I think he's done. He still could play despite a not great team around him. This man was still third in passing yards this year. That is mind
It's
blowing for a
wild.
45-year-old. You know,
Yeah.
uh, they showed Patrick Mahomes like I'm trying to remember. It was like 5 postseason wins at home or something like that. But they showed next to it he had played in the AFC title game 3 times, right? Or no, no, no. Played in the AFC title game 5 times. That's what it was, which is still incredibly impressive, especially for how young he
Yeah.
is. But number one was Tom Brady, and this man played in the AFC title game 14 times, man.
Yeah. Which is
They're only
insane.
2/3 of his career. He made it to at least the AFC title game. 1/3 of his career, he won the freaking Super Bowl. That's crazy.
Mhm.
That's crazy. The only thing I will say is the Raiders have a coach that he's familiar with, have
Yep.
great players around them now, and they're already trying to get him, or they were trying to get him to come to Las Vegas. If the stars aligned, I could see that, but he already has a multi-million-dollar deal with Fox to broadcast the NFL.
Mhm.
He's such a perfectionist, man. I just don't see him making that mistake twice. I really don't. He's not Brett Favre.
I mean,
you
yeah,
know?
there's Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you're probably right. You're probably right. He's probably not going to. I mean, especially with this Fox deal, right? I feel like that's probably going to really help. I feel like maybe he came out of retirement um, because he might have been a little bit scared to kind of on what he wanted to do afterwards. You'd been doing it, for so long in your life, and then boom,
Yeah.
now it's over. That would make it really hard for me.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. The thing that was weird was his last game was against the Cowboys, and he just seemed like he didn't care, which is very uncharacteristically him.
Mhm.
Um, and I understand why he would be frustrated because the team around him was bad and they had been playing the same way they've been playing all season. But he didn't really seem to care. And he got done with the game and he shook hands with who he needed to shake hands with and immediately ran to the locker room.
Mhm.
None of that's very much like him. So it kind of suggested to me, hey, maybe his time's come. But
Yeah.
um, but regardless, we've been watching this dude since we were 6 years old, you know,
Mhm.
in the limelight since we were 7. Um, and that's crazy. I think he really is much like Michael Jordan, a true testament to the potential of devotion, commitment, drive, hard work, you know.
Mhm. Exactly.
Uh, yeah, and just how he's held himself um in the public eye, up until this past year, up until then, he's held himself pretty well,
Yeah.
so anyway, I think we had a good discussion on all of this. Thank you guys for joining us on the live stream and getting in the comments section with us. It was a good time. And we want you guys to all do the same. If you're listening on the audio, go ahead and search our podcast and on Facebook and on YouTube and jump on the live streams with us. Also, I meant to show this off. I'm repping our merch. Oh man, the face zoom
Look at
doesn't.
that.
There we go. There we go. So let's go ahead and get into it. The classic. You can get it on our shop,
Mhm.
linked to wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, in a size and color that's suitable to you. Um, and yeah, man, that's really all I wanted to hit on. You're going to LA, right?
I am. I am. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be great.
First class up in the sky. All right, man. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week.